Welcome to Better Together.
A place where we dive deep into everyday subjects.
We are your hosts, Julian
and Carolina, two psychologists that travel the world and are very excited about the whole human experience.
So without further ado, let's dive into the episode. Welcome to this new episode. Today we talk about how your dreams that you have of your life right now might not be yours.
Dun dun dun! Yes, this came up because of a conversation we were having last night in which we were analyzing all the dreams, the unfulfilled dreams that our parents might have and how are they living through us. Subconsciously, of course, because we don't really know that we're operating on our parents' or ancestors' dreams. But it's an interesting conversation, and then it led to finding a lot of connections between our dreams and the dreams that our parents had. And subsequently, my mom even told me a story with my grandparents. So yeah, we don't know if this is a thing that repeats often, but it makes sense to us that it's something that it's not only isolated to our particular cases.
Yeah, so we will just bring out some stories and paint the picture of what we mean by this. And also, I guess I'll share my theory of why this is happening on a maybe more evolutionary perspective.
Yes, but don't quote us on this.
No, definitely not. I just came up with it. I like it. Okay?
Yes, but just to start with a funny note, a couple of years ago, we were working with a coworker. We had this foundation, and we had hired a team member. Hired, it's a way of saying he was incorporated. Unpaid intern. And he was super interested in video editing and sound effects and recording.
Making movies. He wanted to
be a movie director. And then at some point we were talking and he told us, oh yeah, because my sister also is into the audio visual field. And then I was like, did your dad want to be in movies or something? And then he thought for a second and he was like, yeah, he wanted to be an actor actually. And I was like, wow, like 2 of his 3 children, at least. I don't know if the third also picked up something related to movies.
At least he wanted to study in the Netherlands too.
Yes. They were super interested in movies because the father was interested in movies. And when you speak so well about something or when you have so much illusion, that passion trickles over your children. So
that's the idea.
That's the idea. Like, for example, I personally had it with volleyball, that I never really liked sports, but my dad was obsessed with volleyball. And we would play beach volley, and it was the only activity that we had as a father and daughter. And the only time that he was sort of proud of me if I didn't suck. So it became a thing we did. And it became the only sport that I'm interested in playing, to be honest. I suck at all the other sports because I actually never gave it a first shot. But volleyball it has a place in my heart. And it's because of the passion, the consistency, and the bonding time that it created in my family.
Yeah. So 2 examples already.
Yeah, those are 2 examples already.
So one from our beloved coworker that figured, oh wait, I'm just fulfilling my dad's dream of being a movie director.
Yeah.
And you just gone into beach volleyball because your dad, that's his only sport.
Yes.
Essentially. And for me, let's jump into what I'm fulfilling in my parents' perspective, maybe, or what unfulfilled dreams they have. And one big one is connected to my dad. So he told me, I think a couple of years ago, that he wanted to travel. And he had this little gap between his high school and when he started to get into the work field and started to, work. essentially, where then you cannot just leave and travel for 6 months or do something like that. But it was a deep desire that he had. And he shared that with me, that he wanted to go to, I think, Canada or the US, and wanted to travel there just for 3 months and just explore and be free, right? And that was, he said it with such a sparkle in his eye, but I never really, he never told me that, really. He never really explained that he wanted to travel. And also our vacations were only Austria, Denmark, the Netherlands, like not
from Germany.
From Germany, yeah. From Germany. So like always the neighboring countries, most of the times when they also speak German, so that we don't go that far apart, essentially. And so now I find myself having traveled already to big parts of Asia, to South America, within Europe quite a bit. And now it's like, what? Now I'm realizing that my dad told me like 2-3 years ago that this was his unfulfilled dreams, and his parents didn't let him. He wanted really deeply, and his parents were like, no, you gotta continue the company that my grandpa built. And so that he had to stay home and do that instead of travel.
Yeah.
And that, like, when he said it, it really struck and was like, oh, wow, I'm doing this right now. Maybe because of the reason that he never could. Mm-hmm. My sister's not doing it, so I have to.
Somebody has to sacrifice for the family's dreams.
Yeah.
But now your dad is traveling more, so you don't have to take his dreams. But
I guess I gave him a little bit of a permission slip there.
Yes.
But yeah, still, I think that was very interesting to understand. I didn't get why I was the only one in our family, in quotes now, the only one in our family that wanted to travel and wanted to explore the world and wanted to go around. And now it makes a lot more sense.
Yes, and what about your mom? What are your mom's dreams?
Her starting point when she went out of her parents' house was, or the reason why she left was because she wanted to have her own horse. And so she wanted to live on a farm or be part of it and be able to ride horses and have them around. And the problem was when she did that her dad didn't speak to her for like 3 months anymore because she was not allowed to. So again, but she still bought the horse and got into the house and did that step for quite a big chunk of her life. I think like maybe almost 10 years or something. But then there came a time when she didn't want to ride, again in air quotes, or just stopped. And a big part was also that we were living then on a farm at that point. We had horses, but not anymore. And I think that passion, that desire for my mom to really have her own horses, be on a farm, be constantly there. She told me of summer vacation that she spent the whole summer vacation on that farm to just take care of the horses. So it is sort of a dream. It was partly fulfilled, but not really. Mm-hmm. And now my sister is living on a farm, has a couple of horses on her own, rides a couple of...
Quite a few.
Yeah. I don't know, 3, 4. I lost count.
No, but the horses in the property?
No.
There's a lot more.
Yeah, but they're her own horses. I think she has 3 by now or something.
Okay.
That she bought with her own money. But yeah, she's living now on a farm and they have, 20 horses or something like that. So yeah, so she's again literally living the idea, the dream world that my mom created for herself. And that's very interesting.
And what about the carpenter?
Oh, yes. And the unfulfilled dream that my mom had about me, she wanted to have a drummer, which I definitely cannot be, and a carpenter, which I could, but I'm not. But my sister's husband is a carpenter. Hooray! So she's happy.
Yeah, we're very thankful to Julian's sister.
Yeah. Ticking all the boxes of the unfulfilled dreams that I didn't want to have.
It's very impractical for people that live off a carry-on luggage to have a farm and horses. So we're really happy that she took that one.
I needed to fulfill my dad's dreams.
Yes, somebody needed to do that. So that's also kind of how can it can show up, and how it's also distributed between the different siblings.
Can be.
It can be. And well, I was talking to my mom yesterday because I know my dad, for example, wanted to be a pilot, like a flight pilot, and that was actually one of the careers that I had when I did the orientation right out of high school. That you're just trying to figure out what you're going to study afterwards. One of the things was pilot. It was either psychologist or pilot.
That sounds very random.
It was very random. It didn't make any sense. But I wanted an exciting profession. Something that was going to challenge me and that was going to give me adrenaline. And I think that's partly why, like, that's because of my dad. Because he wanted something exciting for his life. And he ended up being a public employee. How do you call it? Like, state employee? Something like that?
I guess.
So that's what I think. I'm not sure. I'm guessing here. But I think I picked up on that. And I was seriously considering being a pilot. But then I realized, no, I needed to go to the Air Force and then be in the military. And that's like not me at all. Following authority and just doing everything that I'm told. So yeah, I went for psychology. But last February, when it was my dad's 70th birthday, we gifted him a pilot
lesson or an hour to fly.
An hour to fly. So I think he's yet to do it, but at least I'm thinking that it might count as fulfilling a dream. So if your parents have unfulfilled dreams, like, make them fulfill them so you don't have to. I don't know if it will work in this case, but then that also led me to ask my mom, what are your dreams? And she told me that the dreams that she had, she went on unfulfilled. Her dreams are very down to earth in a way. She wanted to go to Peru. She wanted to go to Argentina. She wanted to have a farm. So all of these things she fulfilled in time. And now she wants to go to Italy. And I was like, okay, let's put a date on that one. It's pretty easy. I'm in Spain. I mean, it's just 2 hours away. But yeah, she was like, oh yeah, that's fine. But she is on her journey. She's aware of her dreams and she's on her journey to fulfilling them. So that's interesting when our parents are aware of what they want to do and they actually go do it, that it doesn't leave an open loop in our family system. Because if there's something that can bring you so much joy and you idealize it and you want to give it a place in your family system, then it's weird when it fades away. So that's why I think,
I guess it never really fades away, but it stays as a tension that it's not fulfilled. And that's the idea, at least for me, why the children pick it up, because there's this energy of like, I want to do this.
Yes. So this brings the other story when I was telling my mom yesterday and she was telling me her dreams and she was like, you know what? There was one time when, like, well, I'm going to tell it in my persona, not as if I'm a mom. I was 5 years old and the whole family was planning, the whole family meaning my mom and her two sisters with respective husbands. Only the adults were planning a trip to Cuba and Mexico. And my parents were not having money at all. They only had enough to pay debt and just scraping to survive. So the trip was not really realistic for them. But they did want to go. And it sounded like fun to them. So at some point when my parents couldn't decide if to go or not, my grandparents sat my mother down and my father and told them, I would have loved to go to Cuba and Mexico. I'm way too old now. I don't have the strength. I wouldn't enjoy it. But I would love for you and your sisters to go. Don't worry about the money. We'll help you out. So then my grandparents gave my parents the money. So even when my parents couldn't afford it, they could go still because they were sponsored by my grandparents because they had that unfulfilled dream. So they wanted to pass it on. And my mom remembers that time as like a really lovely thing that transformed her way of perceiving the relationship between parents and children once they're grown up. And when I was getting out of the house and there was this opportunity to buy a new house and I couldn't really get a loan from the bank because I didn't have the seniority and my job or something like that the bank required, my parents were like, okay, we just sold your grandmother's house. We can borrow you the money. Let's buy that house. So that's actually the originating event that led my parents later help me to buy a house.
Oh, that's the only reason why they actually did that.
I think they could have done it otherwise, but it was almost like a no-brainer to pass on that privilege that they had and that support they had from the grandparents to the children. So that's lovely. Like those actions of encouragement and support, they really mean things.
Yeah. And now that you say it, I also remember my dad saying to me that he was not able or not allowed to travel. And he hated it so much. And now he would not like me to be restricted with that either. And they didn't like me actually to go right after high school to Australia, but he remembered in that moment, wait, I was not allowed. I don't want my son to be restricted with that either. And so that was the reason that I think they also funded my flight there. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's like what you notice in your life that your parents didn't give you, you would like to pass on as a positive, I guess, to your children. At least that's how they framed it.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
And that gives meaning to that saying that we're standing in the shoulders of those that came before us. Because our great-great-great-great-great-grandparents had dreams, and maybe their dreams were to have a stable life. And whatever dreams they could fulfill, they did, and then the ones that they couldn't, they passed on. And generation after generation, dreams transformed, and they became more about travel or more about exploration instead of just survival and stability. And now we're in this generation where we can just do anything we want, really. If we have the grit and the knowledge of how to get out of a situation. I'm not saying that anybody can get out of their situation, but for most of us,
you have a lot more possibilities than 20 years ago.
Yes.
A lot.
So it's the time to clear the slate, let's say, and to fulfill all the dreams, even if it's for a small part of our lives. Like, did your parents want to be actors? Well, maybe just take an acting lesson and try it out. And then just let it go. Like, it closes the loop. It's energetic. It doesn't have to be that you fulfill the dream in the shape and form that it was conceived, but more like that you put some energy in there. So the loop is closed.
Also, just becoming aware of what your parents' dreams were. I think, first of all, just asking if there's any, and then also noticing the patterns that you have in your own life. Whether you want to actually fulfill them because of your parents or for another reason. Just becoming aware of that for now. I think that's a big part. And now I still want to mention a little bit of the theory that I have.
Yes, please.
So in psychology, we have this, I guess, saying by now, the common knowledge that in the first 7 years of a child, it picks up essentially everything and sort of then puts into a direction for the rest of their life within this first 7 years. And my idea now is that we do that for survival reasons. So as children, we take on everything from our parents because they made it to the point that they could have children, so they survived. Hence, for the child, it's obvious that, I want to learn everything that they know already to survive for me as well. And then the quick jump of logic is, then I also need to learn about the unfulfilled dreams of my parents because that was the reason that they survived or whatever. And so this is the idea that the unfulfilled dreams of the parents are just put into the child based on either what the behavior or what they learn energetically, just doesn't have to be even spoken, something unconscious, right? So the unfulfilled dreams are just passed on to the children completely unconscious, even if it's not talked about. So that is my idea. Don't quote me on it. It's not in a published scientific paper. It just came up with it. But I think it sounds cool, and it's a cool reference just to check in, I think, with your parents and with your own dreams and see what's there. I think it's a nice question for inquiry to the relationship between your parents, but also for yourself and what your dreams are of your life right now, and to not pass the wrong ones on to your children. Whatever that means.
Just fulfill your dreams in this lifetime.
Yeah. They can do whatever they want.
So your children can be themselves. But, that reminds me of a story, an anecdote. This is more on the spiritual side, so disclaimer, it's going to get woo-woo. But...
I guess they've figured by now if you listen to any other episode before.
Yes. I remember being in Colombia last year and going to this plankton tour, which is you're basically taken to a hidden river through the ocean. There's like a place that is secluded, which is full of plankton, and then you can just jump in the water and swim, and then the water lights up. And I remember being there and jumping into the water and seeing the plankton light up every part of my body that was moving, and seeing it like stars in the water. It was magical. Like, it was.
Yeah, you couldn't get her out of it anymore.
I was in a trance. I was in a different world. I felt like I was in Avatar, and enjoying that situation so much. I was so happy. And there was this voice or this information inside me that was that my ancestors were living this with me. So I was not just living this special situation for myself, but I was also living it for those that came before me. And this tied to an understanding that I had of that our DNA carries not only the genetic information of your body and your cells and how everything is aligned, but also the experiences that the people that came before you had. So whatever the scientists call the junk DNA, it's actually like a lot of it's a database of all your ancestors till the beginning of time, even your frog ancestors and the unicellular beings that lived in a boiling lake. So all of that is in your DNA. And the moment that you are having an experience like this, that it's so centered and so wholesome, you're adding that information. It's almost like you're creating this file, compressing it and putting it in the DNA. And it felt like it was being welcomed into this database of information that it's my family tree. So I felt so connected to the earth and to my ancestors and to life in general, because it was not just this moment. It was all the moments that came before that allowed this moment to happen, and all the people and the generations that came before that allowed this moment to happen. And they were all standing with me in my DNA and in spirit. And that was fucking magical. Yes, so that's the woo-woo story I wanted to share. I don't know if it's related with dreams, but in part, it's like every time that you're fulfilling a dream, you're making your great-grandfather happy. So that's another plus of doing that.
That puts the saying that you had earlier, we're standing on the shoulders of our ancestors on a completely new level.
Yes.
Yeah, we really, like, all of us have had so many ancestors before us that made us even possible. And being in this time that we are living, in the resources that you have, no matter which resources you have, your ancestors made it possible that you have those.
Yes.
And that is incredible to realize and to think about once in a while, that you are just the extension of your whole family tree.
Mm-hmm.
And that because sometimes we can get lost in ego and like, I created all this and I'm able to travel because I made the money to do that. It's like, yeah, well, but my existence, my education, my family, my values, all of that before made it only possible.
Yeah.
So.
And even if you were born without resources and you were self-made and you had to carve your own path, where did you get that courage? Where did you get that impulse of coming out? There was probably a couple of ancestors that had it in their DNA and that you just awakened it within yours.
Yeah.
So it is, in a way, taking out the individual. So it's like, you're not so special. Like, honestly, if we're talking about human history, you're just part of this tiny timeline that's happening in between this year and this year. But there were hundreds of generations that came before you, and possibly quite a few that will go after. We don't know how many.
If we're lucky.
If we're lucky. But yeah, it's not like you're just a moment in time. And the way that you live on and the way that your ancestors live on is through DNA. So yeah, live your dreams and store them in your DNA. So the database is richer for the next person that comes.
Yes, that's lovely. Yeah, and just reflect a little bit on what your dreams actually are, what are the dreams of your parents, and maybe even go in some conversations with them and actually ask them. That's what I'm going to do.
Yes, it's really rich.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
To hear all the stories from their grandparents and what came before them. I think that now, like with this understanding, it's going to be so interesting and so much fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So after listening to this episode, you can choose to do that too, or just have enjoyed the stories.
Yeah.
And we'll see each other next week.
Thank you for joining in another episode, and thank you for sticking with me when I was woo-wooing.
Yes, thank you for the input. See you next week.
Bye-bye.